Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Training Industry Leader Talk, Creating Memorable Training Experiences, sponsored by Adobe, ComLab India, ELB Learning, Schoox, and WhatFix. I'm a Revote Events Manager here at Training Industry, and I'm so thrilled you could join us today. Before we get started, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of today's program. Throughout today's event, please feel free to use the chat for comments and submit questions in the Q&A panel. All questions will be addressed during the event or at the end of the program during our Q&A section. At the end of the event, you'll notice a short survey has popped open in your browser, and we'd appreciate your thoughts on today's event. And as always, all of our sessions are being recorded and will be archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the on-demand sessions. If this is your first Training Industry event, a special welcome goes out to you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D through live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. We would also love to hear what you learned from today's sessions on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platforms and let's continue the conversation. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers, David Wentworth and Melissa Lepiane. David is a Vice President, Learning and Talent Development Platform Evangelist at Schoox. He brings more than a decade of knowledge to the company, including a deep understanding of the workplace technology industry with an emphasis on learning and development. He is a regular speaker at talent management and HR industry events and has authored numerous articles in a variety of learning publications. Melissa, training manager at Friedman's Home Improvement, has extensive expertise in learning and development strategy, instructional design, and problem solving, and has been instrumental in crafting comprehensive onboarding and development programs. We are so very excited to have both of you here today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Avery. I really appreciate that. And welcome, everybody. I'm going to share my screen for you. Here we go. Melissa and I today are going to talk a little bit about making learning unforgettable. I think that's the theme of the day. So we're going to stick with that, right? And Melissa's going to share a little bit about how her team does this. And I'm going to start off by talking about kind of what's behind the thinking here and why this is important as we dive into that. So with that said, a little bit about who Schoox is and why I'm here talking is, so we are an LMS provider, and we are very much focused on the front line, trying to make sure that companies are able to deliver skills when they're needed most, also dealing with a deskless, very mobile heavy frontline workforce. So we're very much invested in how do we make learning unforgettable and how do we make it stick. Here's a little bit of us by the numbers, just so you can see how long we've been around, and that we cover quite a wide swath of organizations and locations. And not for nothing, but Melissa is also one of our customers. So that's why we're on talking today. And I'm going to give Melissa a chance in a little bit to talk about Friedman's and their story. So we'll get to that. But as we open up, when we talk about things like unforgettable learning and engagement and getting people all excited about it, typically what a lot of instructional designers, because this is what we do, and a lot of us they're really good at it, is they start to think about things like, oh, okay, you got to make sure that it's really easy and fun, and it's got cool graphics, and it looks good, and we can use some video and maybe make some games. All of these things are good and important and impactful, but this is not what learner engagement really is. This is sort of like after the horses left the barn, right? We're trying to build engagement after somebody has already been presented with something and clicked on it. So we've sort of missed this huge opportunity of engaging with people and trying to make that learning unforgettable by trying to bake it into the content that we're building. So the idea is, what is it that we should think of first, right? Despite that. So, Melissa, I know you have a cool story to tell about exactly what you guys are doing, but, I saw you nodding along when you think of this, right? You would agree with me that those things are not important, but maybe not the first thing we should think about.
Absolutely not. Nope, not at all. It should come after the fact, right? We got to figure out what we're talking about, and then we can figure out how we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. And with that, I wonder, we were talking before, and you were curious, like, I wonder, how do we know what to think of first. Like, and you asked this great question, was I wonder if people are actually communicating with their learners, right?
Mhm.
And so to that point, I wanted to know, like, in the chat, feel free, please use the chat. You can talk to us, you can talk to each other, ask questions, please do that. But in the chat, if you wanted to respond, how frequently are you hearing from your learners? Is there something in place that allows you to hear back from what's going on? So there's that feedback loop is open. So just, bring that up. I'd like to hear what people are saying in the chat as we go ahead. But when we talk about that, what's in it for me, right? It's the biggest question we can ask. And it's something that everybody asks themselves every day when they interact with anything. You're asking it subconsciously. It's like, okay, I'm about to do this thing. Why? And it isn't a bad thing to ask. It isn't selfish. It's just the way we navigate the world, right? So what is in it for me? So when we start to think about that, that's when we start to build engagement. If you're able to answer that question for people, right, you're able to demonstrate the value of what's going on in this learning. This is why this is important to you. It isn't just take it or else, right? Or you have to do this. There's some value here. This is why we're doing this. And here's what we expect to happen. This often gets left out. This idea of, okay, yes, please do this. Please take part in this. Please complete this. And here's what we expect you to be able to know, do, how to act after this happens. So laying that out there. And then what's in the program itself? Here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to go through that. This is what you're going to expect to experience, so that, that expectation is set. You set a level of comfort and people are ready to engage, ready to go forward. And then, back to that question, this is like, listen to your learners, right? That's one of the biggest ways to find out, how do you know what is in it for them, or what they want out of something, unless we listen. And then a big thing I think gets lost is the show them the results part. And this is because it's at the end, right? So the learning has already happened and it's already gone. If we're doing a good job, we are trying to measure the impact that learning is having on some sort of outcome, right? Not just the completions, but some sort of outcome. And if we're doing a great job, we're actually finding that out. We're having those metrics. But then what are we doing with that? Are you then coming back to the learners and saying, look what we did, look what happened, look what you achieved because of this? I think we skip that a lot because we're always on to the next program. You got to keep moving forward. Yes, we measured the impact, but that was for the executive team. It wasn't. But the idea is, no, come back to the learners and say, all this stuff we talked about at the beginning, here's what that really looks like. And now you're building engagement for the next time, right? You're already ahead of the game for engagement the next time you want to come by and ask for people's time, and things like that. And then the sort of last thing I want to touch on before I let Melissa explain how they're doing a lot of these kinds of things and the way they approach things at Friedman's. You hear a lot about personalized learning. That's been kicked around for many years now, but it was really important to at least get to a level of personalization where we're focused on two things. It's not just it's unique or applicable to that person based on their needs and interests, their role, where they are, their tenure, whatever it happens to be, but it also is available to them in a time frame and in a venue that makes sense for them, right? So that's personal too. If you're asking somebody to completely step outside of what they're normally doing or take some exaggerated steps to get to where you want them, it's no longer personal. It's now a chore, it's some job, and it's external to them. So the more that we can provide multiple opportunities with different modalities, the ability for people to reach out and do things on their own to the degree that we can let that happen, that's very important. Again, that learner input, that leads to a lot of personalization. And it is, again, it isn't just, okay, hey, we have this chat box that you can give us feedback. And then that's the end of it, right? If you're not actually looking at the feedback and then addressing it, whether it's address it to say, you know what, we've heard, and a lot of people are saying this, we're going to make that change, or we've heard, and we don't think that's an issue, and here's why. But you have to be able to respond to it, because if it feels to them as though they're just shouting into an empty chamber, they're going to stop doing it. And maybe ultimately that's what you want, but it's not going to help your learning any if you do that. So Melissa, I do want to hand to you, and I thought you had another interesting question based on the way that you guys do things, but you wanted to ask the group to maybe chime in on something else too.
Yeah. I would love to hear how often you are delivering content to your learners. Is it on a regular cadence? Are we talking annually? Is it quarterly? Just how often is content being delivered to your audience? Well, that'll be a key theme of what we talk about today.
Nice. Okay, so with that, while people are having that chat, I want you to go ahead, Melissa, and just tell everybody what you guys are all about, and then we can get into that story.
Love it. Okay. So Friedman's Home Improvement. We are Northern California's largest family-owned local home improvement retailer. We have a long history. Our story started in 1946, about 40 minutes north of San Francisco, California, in Petaluma, if you know where that's from. And you can imagine that in a family company with that long of a history, there's lots of stories to tell, but I'm just going to cut out a couple of things here and tell you some highlights. But this is Benny and Joe Friedman. These were the two brothers who started our company. After World War II, they pulled their entire life savings, a whopping $4,000, and they started buying scrap and salvage materials. Petaluma is known for its agricultural community. Like, we have a parade every year that celebrates butter and eggs. It's the Butter and Eggs Day Parade. And these guys were instrumental in making that happen in our community. They were constantly meeting our community with where they were at and what they needed. And it wasn't this, we're a retailer, so we carry this, this, and this. It was, our community needs this, so let's go find these products for them. So right off the bat, there's this deep commitment and understanding who they were serving. And so when you progress a little further, we opened up another store in Santa Rosa in 1970s. But right after that, our first store burnt down. So up until like 1993, we were still one location. We opened up our second location in Sonoma in 1993, and then another location in 97 in Ukiah. So all in all, our stores are spread out over Northern California in about a 100-mile radius. But you can imagine, for 50 years, we were home improvement store run by a family. Like, the people who ran that business sat around the dinner table every night together, and they talked about what's important to them and how they're running their business. So as you grow, there's all these growing pains. And so this is who we are now. So after Bill Friedman was our previous CEO, and you can really talk about his time as like that expansion. He was the one who oversaw a lot of those other stores. We eventually did come back to Petaluma. So now we have 4 retail locations, a distribution center, a headquarters office, and we are looking to grow into another market here soon. And then Barry has been our CEO. He's the 3rd generation of Friedman's, and he's been about 12 years, I think, running the company. And I don't think I need to tell any of you what's been going on in the world in the last like 5 years, but more locally here in California, you know, COVID affected us, and everybody who did a home improvement project during COVID, thank you so much for supporting my industry. But then here in Northern California, we were also affected by seasonal wildfires. So we became like instrumental, essential, all of those words for what we meant to our community here, and being able to provide that for them. So who we are now, this is our team now. So that black and white picture down there, that was taken, I think, at our 40th anniversary. And 6 of those team members in that photo still work at Friedman's today, right? So we have some long tenured team members. But we also have a whole group of people, like the gentleman in the top photo. Those were all seasonal hires. That was their first job. They were just here for 3 months. So we've got both of these extremes of people who have been in the industry for a really long time and people who are coming here for the first time job. We also have people in all sorts of different industry, like different jobs in our community. So we have people who are like on forklifts every day. We've got accounting and marketing teams. We have to do the training for everybody in between. So C-suite, first-time employees. I always compare the forklift OSHA standard safety, where we talk a lot about safety and security, and then like people like me in my job, where the most dangerous thing I encounter all day long is the stairs up to my office, right? And how do you meet all of those people where they are and with what they need? So the thing that unites us across all of these job roles, across all of the time that we've been here, is this mission statement. So it's delivering the human side of home improvement. We have our 5 values: the lead, connect, grow, serve, and care. And they're, interrelational, and they connect a lot. But our mission statement is so interesting, because when you drill into what does human side mean, it's empathy. It's being heard, it's being seen, it's being valued, it's being recognized. And that goes beyond like the customers we serve, right? Because that is, I can tell you you guys know who our competitors are, right? They wear the orange shirts and the blue shirts, and we all have customer service stories about going in there. And so what's our differentiator? In this world, right? We also have the This isn't like walking into like a Target where you can pick out dish soap or mascara or things like that. We need experts in these fields who can help solve problems, because part of being that human side is being able to answer these questions when people come in and they're like, hey, this thingy mabobber on my faucet is sprouting water everywhere. Tell me what I need. And we have to be able to solve that problem, right? Otherwise, they're not getting off the couch with stuff that they can order online. So we really have to take this mission statement super seriously to be different in the workplace. So how do we do that on a training team in a digital world where, and particularly in an industry where emotional intelligence, empathy, it's not necessarily something that's at the forefront of construction industries. And here we are working side by side it, and we have to talk about it because that's literally in our mission statement. So I saw some of you guys answer in the chat about like, when was the last time that you were working side by side with your learners? And David, do you have kind of what people have been saying on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think that the overall theme is there isn't really a set standard, right? It depends on the training, and it depends on the role, how often they need things, as needed, no set amount, you know, so a lot of ad hoc, which is not a derogatory term in any sense, right? I think the nature of doing things in a human way requires you to do a little bit of ad hoc delivery, correct?
Absolutely, right. What's the expression, like the best laid plans, like we'll laugh about them afterwards? Like I could have a whole year's agenda of this is what I want to teach everybody, but if I don't get input from anybody of my learners about, okay, well in July we might need this, and yeah, best laid plans. So I would love to talk to you guys about how we connect with our end users here. And we have the privilege here too. Like I'm talking to you guys from the Santa Rosa location. I sit on the second floor. So my learners are literally 20 feet away from me at all times, which is a blessing that I do not take for granted in any way, shape, or form. So we created this activity that we do with all of our learners when we're developing content for them. It's really simple. And what I like about it is that it takes these topics where they're not industry specific, because we could sit here and say learning objectives and ROI and outcome, right? But this takes it so anybody can help us create the training they need. So 3 different categories: know, do, and feel. So when you dive into this first one, know, what's the expected outcome, right? Oftentimes when people come to you and they're like, we need training on this, we need it right now, right? And I know everyone probably just smiled and nodded because they have somebody in their company who comes to them all the time and is like, we have this problem. That's essentially it, right? Is they're coming to you with a problem. You need to be the human side and help them solve that problem. So what do you need to know? And this bucket opens up so many conversations with the people that you need to build this training with, right? Because if there isn't a problem, then why are we doing this, right? Is this just a follow-up conversation that we need to have? Is it something we just need to make more clear? But this unlocks like a lot of different conversations with leaders, particularly. This becomes your objectives at the end, and it becomes really tangible. And when you do it side by side with your learners, they know, like, they're doing it every day. I'm pulling people off the floor who are subject matter experts, and then they become like, when they're going to onboard that new cashier, they know what's going to come out of this training program because they helped me write it. So the next category is do. And so as a company, you just wrote all this training, you invested all this time, you're having your learners go into the training rooms and do it. What should we expect them to do afterwards, right? What I love about this one too is that it becomes the conversation of how do we evaluate that, right? And so oftentimes people will be like, well, they took the training on it, they should know it, right? That it's done now, but that's not the case. Oftentimes this becomes a conversation around, well, how do you validate that? How do you know that they're actually operating safely? Is it because you can see them in their forklift using 3 points of contact and using a seatbelt, right? These become the actual things we want to observe. And when you are able to drill it down to a level for the team members where it's like specific like this with the do, it becomes much more impactful for them to actually make it a living thing after you're done creating it. And then the last, and what I think is probably the most important, is feel. This is where culture shows up. So creating that common language. So we have like warehouse teams in each one of our locations. And when I first got here, you could even see that the Santa Rosa warehouse location was talking about things differently than the Sonoma warehouse location. Even though they're doing the exact same job, the way they talked about it would make things harder for them to streamline and to make systems and processes because they were talking about it differently. So when you get this feel, it becomes how the language for literally everything. So if you think of like a Venn diagram, I always think of the feel as the middle of that Venn diagram, where like policy and process is on one side and the human is on the other side. And this is right in the middle of how do you connect what we have to do to run a business to that human part of it all. So the feel is also where, like, when you write training and it's you're encouraged to versus you must do something, right? So even being particular about your expectations and alignment could help here. And then lastly, feel, when we talk about creating the work of like, are we going to make a handout? Are we going to make a video? This is important too, because like, think about the medium and the message you're trying. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to do? And if the idea is to get them into the environment as close as they possibly can to the real life thing in training, this feel is like, okay, if we're going to teach a system, if we're going to teach our entire inventory system, my training needs to be simpler than the inventory system. It can't be more complicated. I can't feel this training was more stressful than this, because otherwise when they get into that environment, they have no faith and confidence in that. So this feel becomes, it helps you define how you're going to deliver the no's and the do's. So these are my 3 favorite things. We talk about them all the time. I don't think there's a single thing that we do in this office that we don't have a no-do feel for.
Yeah, and you know, I love when you bring up like forklift training, because it's to me it's a go-to for it's often falls under compliance training.
Yep.
Which tends to get very little, you know, focus and recognition in terms of all these grand thinking about learning. But it's such an important thing where it isn't just I've provided the training, they took it, they passed the assessment, I never have to set foot in a warehouse ever again. And it's more about, no, are you actually seeing that people are doing the things that they need to be doing, and explain to them the reasons why they need to do it. It's safety and it's insurance and it's all of these things. And then when those things are happening, you go into that feel part. How do you feel? Oh, I get to go to work somewhere where I'm not looking over my shoulder every 5 seconds, wondering if someone's going to hit me with a forklift. And we also become an employer of choice, because instead of working at the warehouse down the road where people are getting knocked over left and right, I can work here where it's much safer. You know, it all goes into this, and it isn't just simply oh, here's this training that you have to take or we're in trouble.
Yeah. You know, I always think about too, I'm sure every driving school had it, but you remember when you were in driving school and you had to take, I think it was called like the red pavement, and it was like, you remember that video, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
on the
talking
highway.
about, the feels. Yeah, right? Because that video helped me remember I mean, I've been driving longer than I haven't been driving in my life, right? But I remember that video and how serious I should be taking road safety, right? So those feels are really important, because that's what helps like stay longer. I may not remember the actual words on that page and what those specifics were, but I will remember that I should be taking this seriously. So
For sure.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, even for this webinar, I did a no-do feel, right? Like, when I'm talking to all of you, you guys gave me an hour of your time to talk to me. So like, what would I hope you know after this? What do I hope you do after this? And how do I want you to feel after this? So these are the examples that we have up here, but I hope that we're going to talk about the tailgate next. So that's one of the points up here.
Great. All right. Yeah. So yeah, let's bring up that, because I you know, I've talked to you before about this, and I think this is a great sort of example of personification of all the things that you're talking about.
Yeah. Cool. So what's a tailgate? That's the first question. Actually, let me back up even one step further. Sure. When I started here about 4 years ago, the state of training and what it was, I started literally the same week we adopted an LMS. So like, here's your new training manager and your new LMS, and here I am. So what training was is we would have this sheet of paper called a tailgate, a safety tailgate, and it was just the safety topic of the month. And managers had to go chase around all 100 team members to get them just to initial and sign off. Who knows if they read it? Who knows where those documents went afterwards? Who knows what kind of follow-ups were happening? It was, I mean, chaos, right? So when we got the LMS, we stuck to a system that they were familiar with. So for the first maybe year, all we did was that safety tailgate on our LMS and some other things with some other job roles. But in terms of a whole company adoption, this is where we started. Take something they know they're already doing and move it here. Once they got comfortable with that, we started, adding videos and quizzes and polls. But then we moved on and we wanted to elevate the entire company at once. Like we can't just focus on one job role because I have a commitment to serve all the team members here at this company. So I can't just focus on one job role at a time. So we developed, expanded the monthly tailgate. And so now we've included what's called the Friedman's fundamentals, which is this is where the essentials, the basics, right? So here you've got an example of like identifying and connecting with customers. So this is where we go into soft skill development. We go into customer service, we go into phones, emails, growth mindset, all these kinds of things. And this is different kinds of content that we put in there. So we make the videos from in-house, right? So like even in that picture, that's 2 of our team members. So all of our video, like they recognize those faces, they recognize those stores. I'm often the voiceovers on them, so like they even hear my voice, like it's us. It sounds like us, it looks like us. And then on top of that, leaders get 1 more course. So all team members get 2 courses every single month that cover these things. And then leaders get a 3rd topic. And this is really where we're diving into emotional intelligence and empathy and all of these leadership skills. And then when we think about the feel, right, again, we deliver most of this on a digital platform. So we do have videos and we have handouts that they can take away. But what's really special about this is leaders have 2 weeks to do this content. It gets assigned on the 1st of the month. And then somewhere in the middle of the month, usually it's second Tuesday, the entire management team here at Friedman's, we get together on a Zoom call and we talk about it. They're given discussion questions based on the topic and then they have some time to think about it. And then we come together. There's small breakout rooms so people feel a little more comfortable sharing in small groups. And then we come together in like the 5 or 6 groups and we all do key learnings sharing. And it's about an hour long. Our CEO facilitates it. And this is really where like the meat of it comes in. And I love these calls. I look forward to them every single month because you hear what people took away from it. And I literally sit there with my no-do feels and I hear like, did I hear that? Did I hear this? Did I hear this through these conversations? And on top of that, we also use polls. So we use polls in our training to have a 2-way conversation with our team. So the same questions that they are answering on that development call, the call 2 weeks later as a management team, they've already gotten them and they give their first draft to me and I read them. It's how I start my morning. I love it. I have my coffee and I read their answers to the polls and what they took away from it. And it makes me feel like I'm not just talking to them and here's what you need to know this month and why we're talking about it. But it's what are you taking away from it? Why was this important to you? Why? And one of the questions is always like, what's new? What resonated differently? And how is this showing up in your day-to-day life? And that conversation is, it's my favorite part about this job.
Melissa, we had another Melissa on the call asked if the first part of the program that you're talking about, is it the first part of the training, is it training, self-guided or instructor-led?
Great question. All of these courses are delivered through our online or learning management system. So they're all delivered digitally. And the thought with that being is that all of these team members, their business flow is different. The warehouse gets different times of busyness than the yard team members versus the retail team members. And so when we have this, like we're going to have a class from 11 to 2 today about this, it doesn't work for retail. It doesn't work for us because we can't pull off 5 people from the floor because they need to be on the floor, right? So it's all digital. We do have some classes that are in person. A lot of the classes that are about teaching, about leadership, we do have supplemental like quarterly classes we do in person. But for the most part, most of our training is delivered online and digital with follow-up in person from leaders.
So as we head into some of the outcomes that you've seen, I just wanted to bring up, like Sherry mentioned, because you talked about the feedback and having those discussions, and Sherry was talking about that they're trying to help their subject matter experts and managers incorporate an on-the-job training evaluation and get back to them with results to see where they're missing the boat, right? So they're getting those people sort of feet on the ground that the managers can then evaluate that training and let them know, yes, this is working. Here's where we've missed things. So Sherry, I appreciate you pointing that out to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So this project was something we did pretty early on, and I love talking to Schoox about it. And they recognized they helped us articulate some of the ROI that we've been having with this. So with these expansions into the tailgate, we have seen significant improvement with a lot of the safety stuff because we've transitioned from this paper document that maybe it got read, maybe it didn't, to having an online system where it was interactive. We use Articulate to build some interactivity into things too, but having something where they can actually interact with it, our safety numbers went down consistently for 2 years afterwards. And then doing the compliance training and reporting, we saw a 70-hour reduction per week, and that's across teams. So like that's our team tracking stuff down, that's human resources tracking stuff down, store leadership's tracking stuff down. Having that consolidated place for us has been really important. But the thing I think I'm most proud of, I think, is this management training, taking it from 1 year to 3 months. So when leaders used to onboard here, this industry that we have is huge. I think, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but we have easily 50,000 products in our store. We serve everybody from the enthusiastic DIYers who want to just judge their rooms to professional contractors who are buying hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and they know it. They know more than I will ever know about lumber, right? So when we are able to up train our managers so that they can meet the demands of all of those customers really quickly and all their team members, that's been a huge improvement. So the management training through that tailgate program has been
Nice.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, Kathy says she loves that. That was great. She likes that explanation of that. We did have a question from Betsy. Speaking of leaders, are the leader add-ons that you mentioned, are those available to other level employees who may want to move up?
Yes. Great question. Our library is completely open. So we have the managers take it first because we want them to have the skills before we ask their teams, right? And we want them to have exposure to it first. So we've been doing this now for about a year, 18 months almost 2 years maybe. We're at the point now where we're going to start cycling through, and all of those manager contents are now going to go to all team members. So all team members are going to get now more emotional intelligence training and all those kinds of things. And we'll have like 2.0s for managers, more of an in-depth version of that same content. But yeah, the managers can assign it whenever they want.
No, that's perfect. And you know, I think it fits here. Was earlier Elizabeth had commented that a few weeks ago they had to go through the current training as a learner and perform the same tasks and just I tried to perform, right? So I think that's a great example of, yeah, I mean, what's it like, you know, to actually go through it and do it. So you know, you don't get a sort of better picture of what you're providing than doing it, you know, going through it yourself for sure.
For sure. We love having we like to build connections sometimes with some other like support teams, like kind of behind the scenes from retail. So like my tech team, love them. Hi tech team, I think they're watching. So like they will take our training before like a cashier does, because we need to make the assumption that this person doesn't know anything about the platform before they come in. So what questions does this person have who doesn't have that knowledge? Like we can't take for granted what they may or may not know. We have to tell them. So
yeah,
often having somebody take a training who's not in that work all the time, that is really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost anybody can have that experience of being so close to something and being so involved into something that when you have to explain it to somebody, it's like, but it just is. This is just how it works. Like, it's like drums and behind me. I've tried to give lessons in the past, and it's just boils down to me saying, well, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
That you're supposed to just do it. Yeah. So the ability to, you know, and as Andrew calls it, the curse of knowledge, the ability to pull yourself up just a little bit, you know, take that step back. Okay, what am I actually putting people through? What do they really need to know? It's so important because, and it's not because we're, you know, doing a bad job or you're bad people. You're just busy and you're in it, and you eat, sleep, and breathe it all day. You got to remember that, you know, people that are coming to work in these other roles, they don't. They're probably not even thinking about it at all until you bring it to their attention.
Yeah, and part of that is why I love doing the no do feel with those team members in particular too, because especially in a company the size of mine, right? There isn't this like expansive job network for them to go up level, right? There's only a finite number of managers in this company. There's only a finite number of employment opportunities. So when you sit down with them and you're like, hey, I know you know this, but I need everyone else to know what you know. Let's do this together so you can help me create this program. That's development right there, right? How do I get that knowledge out of your head onto this piece of paper for everyone else to know? So that's also a huge win for it too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a key point in this kind of environment where you've got frontline workers and you've got sort of, you know, that upward funnel isn't as expansive as it is in other places. So
Yeah.
that tight wire act of, you mentioned the leadership add-ons and that. So making sure that the opportunities are known, available, and the pathway to them is seen. But you also support everybody else too. It isn't though, oh, you don't want to become this, well, then we don't need to support you, or really, right? It's this, if people are good at their job and they're happy doing what they're doing, they need just as much support as somebody that wants to grow. And that's how you build retention in a frontline environment, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if we weren't, I would say we weren't delivering the human side of home improvement. So it's definitely a core.
Yeah, 100%. Let's we've been doing it, we've been answering some questions, but I do want to get to some others that came through. This is a good one, and I saved it for the end because I thought it would be interesting. But Beth was asking, what if you never have the opportunity to work directly with learners you're designing the training for? Now, I know you've just explained how you are able to do that, but do you have either thoughts or experience in doing it where you can't do that?
Yeah. My first thought, we're in a digital age, right? And so especially when you think about like software training is a big one we're working on right now. I screen share with them all the time. So I have my learners jump on a Teams call with me, and I have them share their screen and show me how they're clicking through things. So having a Teams call to do the no do feel with them, right? Like doing the conversation doesn't necessarily have to be shoulder to shoulder in person in the same room. I'd argue that's delightful whenever you can. And like, that's definitely that human side empathy, eye to eye. But I mean, use technology the way you can, right? It's there for us to connect. So connect through that is my best. And I would also argue too that people want to help, right? Like, especially when they're passionate and they're knowledgeable, like these subject matter experts who have worked in the plumbing industry for 20 years and now I'm writing plumbing training, they want to pass along that knowledge. So all you have to do is tap in the right way to meet them there and then get it from them, right? So if they're not computer savvy people, I'm going out of my way to talk to them in person. If they can jump on a Teams call and they're in Ukiah an hour away, jump on a Teams call with me and talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on something there. There's nothing like talking to someone who's knowledgeable about something. And then they just want to share that knowledge. And so it isn't just, oh, I can learn from that person, but it's like, how did that person get that? You give the person that knowledge and they buy into it. They then want to share that knowledge. And in an environment like retail, that's huge, right? The idea that I can not only answer your questions, but we can talk about this kind of thing over here. And this thing is interesting and I have answers for it. Huge. So to be able to use the technology that you have and the subject matter expert you have in the organization to provide that, like, hey, listen, you want to be knowledgeable and an expert in something, we have that for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of topics, Mary asked a question. When you talk about the manager training, what topics are you including in that? If you have like sort of a broad overview.
I'm so glad you asked this question. So I literally call it tea time with the managers, where they spill tea. And I go to them probably once a month. It's a pretty regular meeting that I have with them. And I just talking about what's going on in their stores, what's going on with your teams, what are the roadblocks you're challenging right now. And then I sit back and I take a look at all those themes across all of it. And oftentimes it's people leadership. So it's a lot of people leadership topics. So we did a 4-part series on emotional intelligence. So the first one was about self-regulation, identifying your own emotions, motivation and persuasion. We've done, oh my gosh, so many more. We've done how to give good feedback, how to receive feedback. We've done growth mindset is a favorite that we love to talk about. But most of the time it's a lot of these like people, how do I talk to other people in a way that inspires them? That's a lot of what our content's about.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot with manager training, because
always,
so often if you get really good at whatever it is that you're doing, the next step is a manager, and no one ever said that you were good at that, right?
Totally different skill sets. Yeah, totally different skill sets.
Right. So it's important to really nail down that stuff. Some people need a lot of help with that. Others are just born to it. But I think you're hitting all the key elements there. Any other questions from the group? Please feel free to throw those in here. We want to keep the discussion going. If you want to share anything with each other about what you're doing. If you want to connect with Melissa or myself, here's our info, and it'll be in the deck. You want to catch up with us on LinkedIn and ask us questions later, and maybe not in front of the whole group. We're open to that too. I don't know, what else do you want to share, Melissa, around this? If there's anything sort of new that you guys have been thinking about or that you've seen that speaks to this? I don't want to put you on the spot, but anything you want to share?
Um, just that, I really take to heart the whole idea of like I make plans about a quarter of a time in terms of content. That way I can keep my team engaged with the work. But really, how we decide what content is going to be written comes from our end users, our learners. I don't know that I have a plan for what content's coming out in January because I haven't done my tea time with the managers yet. So, um, and that tea time is also a lot of like what has been working for us, what hasn't, what improvements have you seen? Because then I know where I want to spend more of my time. Like, oh, that kind of training worked for this topic for this audience. Like, let's keep diving into that. Um, we're diving a lot into like system stuff right now, which is a really interesting juxtaposition from like how do you go from these soft skill leadership things to being way more technical and still dividing or delivering that human side through systems and technology. So that's the kind of stuff we're working on right now.
Yeah, I like the way you mentioned that. It isn't just, you aren't coming at it from this technology first. Let's get this thing and plug it in because it's going to work. It's how does this piece of technology further our human connection, right? Like, human first, right? I love that.
Well, and then even too, like understanding like that whole idea of like not everyone knows what you know, right? So you look at our inventory system the first time and it's 10,000 buttons with words that I have no idea what they mean. So how do I deliver the human side on that? And like, okay, here's all of your like, here's why, right? Like here's why you have to put in the information at this time because downstream this team needs it to complete their task, right? So it's all of those places where we can find the why and tell you why it's important. That becomes that human side of the systems training. So that's really where we're digging in, which is such a cool thing too, to understand how interconnected the business is too. And it's such a unique point of view we get in training.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. And Avery, if you want to jump back in and wrap things up for folks, and like I said, you can reach out to us after the fact if you have other questions or you want to share anything.
Please do.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time today. It's been so awesome reading the chat and following along with your presentation. And yeah, we have about a 15 or so minute break. And up next, we have Laura Sanchez from What Fix for their session, Creating Memorable Training with Workflow Learning. So in just a moment, I will end this session and you can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and going to the session tab. Thank you again, David and Melissa, for your time today, and we will see you all in a few.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.